Okay, some modalities teach that shocks, traumas, or emotional upsets are the precursors that create body imbalances. Any comment?
Yes, well, absolutely. Those things can be precursors for stronger physical type symptoms. That doesn't mean that's always the case. Some things happen. So, like you may be riding your bicycle and you hit a rock and you fall off your bicycle and you hurt your knee. This then causes emotional distress, and now you can't go to work. And then that causes spiritual distress because now you feel worthless. And so, in martial science, we look at healing as there are these three foundational points that problems start happening with the body. It's like a triangle. And so it's like spiritual, physical, and emotional. And then in the middle, there's like this E symbol for energy, and it all revolves around energy. But so the example that I gave you is something happening physically, affecting you emotionally, and then that affects you spiritually. And then that can turn around and make, like instead of being flat like this, it makes a stack. So there's a triangle here and then a triangle here, and it just keeps getting more intense, spiraling upward. And it tends to, whatever started it, if it was a physical problem, it tends to amp up uh, after it's gone through an emotional problem, after it's gone through a spiritual problem, then the next physical problem that manifests will be more intense. So let's say that you fell off your bicycle and you hurt your knee, and that upset you emotionally, and then you couldn't go to work, and that upsets you spiritually because now you feel worthless. And now your knee is not healing well because you're under stress, and it starts to get pain or more pain. And so then this makes you more upset. And so it cascades like that in a upward spiral, and where it gets worse and worse until something finally breaks the threshold of it. But the basic gist is all kinds of things can be precursors to other things. And I know that probably Western medicine would disagree with that. They think, it's like this is like this. And it kind of is. But the problem is the spectrum of stuff they're looking at is like this. And you need to open up your spectrum much bigger. So yes, emotionality. I mean, perfect example of emotionality causing physical problems could be a story I tell about the guy who he had like some kind of cirrhosis of the liver, and he came in to get some work done. And now this guy was like on a liver transplant list. I mean, he had severe liver problems. He was only like 32 or 35, something like that. And when he came in, he said, well, what is it that you actually do here? I said, well, it's kind of like a massage. It's kind of like, energy work. He's like, what does that look like? And I said, well, is there anything that emotionally upsets you? And I was going to do some clearing on him to demonstrate, what it looked like. And he says, well, I hate dogs. And I'm thinking, well, that's kind of weird, but okay. And so I cleared that, and I said, okay, so how's the whole dog hating thing? And he says, I hate my dad. Like, okay, so as you can see, that was a layer, okay, the dog hating thing that was suppressing the whole father hating thing. So I cleared that, and I said, okay, so tell me about the whole dog hating thing. And he says, and he started breaking out in emotion. He started pouring out crying. And he says, when I was a kid, I had this dog, and my father made me get rid of it. He said we didn't have enough money to take care of it. And I love that dog. I love that dog. And I hated him for making me get rid of that dog. And so I cleared all that stuff, right? And when I was done with him, which that whole process probably took like 15 minutes, I said, okay, so how are you feeling about the whole dog hating thing? And he didn't have a reference for what I was talking about now. And I said, okay, well, don't worry about it. Let's just go ahead and get started with the session. And he's like, session? What session? I'm like, well, don't you have some kind of liver thing you want worked on? And he's like, well, no, I don't have a liver thing. I'm like, are you sure? Because on my notes here, it says you got a liver thing that you want worked on. And he's like, no, I don't have anything like that. And I'm like, well, then why are you here? And when I said that, he like didn't have an answer for that. He didn't know why he was there. And I'm like, okay, okay. So anyway, he left, and I didn't hear any more from him for like 2 months. But then I heard from the friend who recommended him that apparently, miraculously, his liver stuff went away. like whatever it was. And he wasn't on the liver transplant list anymore. And I'm like, son of a gun. I wonder if his whole thing was emotional suppression because the liver is the supreme controller of all the emotions. Okay. And he's suppressing this pretty volatile energy, right? And now that the liver chi unbound and was released, maybe it was never cirrhosis of the liver to start with. Maybe he never needed a liver transplant. He just needed an emotional flush. Or maybe God healed him. I'm just saying it looked pretty much like liver emotionality for the win. But so that's a perfect example of an emotional problem affecting a physical problem and making it look like something else when it's not. Like maybe they take his liver out and put in another liver, and maybe that liver starts to go bad because the emotionality is still suppressed in the mind. I mean, who knows? So, all right.